What up? What up? What up? Welcome to another episode of Kickin with B. Today, I'm your host Brandon, aka B. But today, I have a friend of mine here on the show, and his name is
Chris, how's it going?
Chris. And I previously worked together at another job, and we started bonding over the fact that we had children around the same age. Although I believe your daughter's a little bit younger than Love. If that's correct.
Yeah, I think right around 6 months or so.
Okay. But we had conversations about what our child's development was going on at the time. Like at the time, like it came down to like napping, toys, potty training, which I think you have already started embarking on too. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can talk about more of that and more in depth, but it was, I think I had a very different experience than you.
My experience is still ongoing. It's not as
Okay.
easy as I thought it'd be because I did start her a little earlier. We started her like right around the time she turned two, and we had some luck, but it's mostly hit or miss.
Yeah.
Um, but like I was saying, like we worked together and we would bond over that because children being the same age, we could share experiences, and we're both first time fathers. So that was exciting, and it's always good to have a conversation with a fellow father just to see kind of the struggles they may be having, share experiences, and that's something that we're here to do today. We're going to talk a little bit about our experience with our children and what our hopes are as far as being a father go. So, Chris, let's start off by talking about our experience with our toddler. You talked about potty training. You started off with that. So let's lead with that if you don't mind, because I'd
Okay.
love to hear
Yeah.
what's going on with you.
Yeah. So, my daughter Luna, she is just about potty trained at this point.
Ooh.
Like, and like, it's funny because we say that Luna does things in Luna's time, with everything. Like she'll try something like walking or crawling, she'll do it like twice and then be like, I'm not gonna do that. And then like three weeks later, she'll be like running around the house or something like that.
I love that.
And so like we had started kind of getting her introduced to kind of pull up style diapers,
Hmm.
uh, and that was going fine. And then we actually went to Hawaii a few months ago, and she had just had some food that disagreed with her. We'll go into the gory details, but it was basically like she hadn't gone to the bathroom pretty much at all from like when we left Seattle to when we landed in Hawaii,
Oh wow.
and so she had a pretty major accident, um, and that fortunately I think like kind of like scarred her in a way because
No.
that entire trip she was like, done. I'm going to the bathroom now. I'm going potty. Like I'm
Whoa.
gonna sit down on the potty and I'm gonna use the potty like a big girl.
I love
And
that.
so like quite literally since that accident, like she hasn't needed to like do number two in a diaper essentially. And to the point that like when we got back from Hawaii, we kept her in the pull-ups for maybe a month, but it had been going so well that we were just like, you're in underwear now, and you're like that's that essentially.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's pretty wild. Today, though, today that was a pretty big accident. That was pretty funny.
Oh
She
wow.
was like, she was like, I was cleaning up. My wife wasn't home yet, and she's then like, Daddy, I'm peeing, and then she's like trying to back, like she was just in front of the potty that we kind of leave in the living room, and so she's like backing up like while she's trying to pull her pants down, and then she's like, I'm slipping. She's like almost it sounds disastrous, but like it was a calamity of hilarity though. It was like really, it was very cute, it was very funny, and like the big thing is and actually it was one of the, I mean, it was something that I think you would learn while reading up on potty training, right? But it's like one thing that I remember someone in our previous employer's Slack channel, the parents channel, I remember them saying like pretty distinctly, like, whatever happens, like, don't make a big deal about it and like, don't be angry. It's
Hmm.
called an accident for a reason. And so,
Hmm.
like, anytime that kind of thing happens, like, find the humor in it. Obviously, not to the point that you're going to embarrass them, but like find the humor in it and like just clean it up, make them feel better, and just move on.
So that That's fantastic to hear that she's almost fully potty trained.
Yeah.
Because I am not having that same kind of luck with Love. Uh,
Okay.
like we will, so in the morning when we wake up, we'll put on a pot. You know, we had success with that. But the trouble that we're having is that she doesn't tell us when she has to go.
Mm.
And that's something we've been kind of struggling to like kind of have her get a better hold of. Because there'll be times where she tells me she has to poopy, right? But reality is actually pee. But
Yeah.
she had already done it. She'll like, Daddy, I poopy. But you know what I mean? So we're trying to do it. I would love to hear any tips that you might have for it. We did get this book. It's like potty training in 3 days or something.
Okay.
But I haven't really had a chance to dive into it yet. So
Yeah.
what we've been doing is more like the positive, what's the word I'm looking for?
Positive
Reinforcement.
reinforcement.
There we go.
Yeah.
Positive reinforcement. You know, like, hey, good job. Even if she just sits on a pot and does a little tinkle, we're like, good job. You know. So, what tips would you have for a father that's learning the potty train?
Yeah. So me, before we started, like I know you were saying you're limiting screens as much as possible. But like we have let her watch a little bit of like Daniel Tiger here and there. And
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Tiger actually talks, like they have a few episodes around going to the bathroom and potty training. And there are a couple of jingles in there as well. If Love likes to sing, I think she does.
She loves to.
So that might help. And honestly, one of the big things that we do with Luna and is we just make sure, like, if it has been a while since she's gone to the bathroom, we'll just be like, all right, pause, like, let's check in with your body. Like, how are you feeling? Do you feel like you have to go pee? And just like really kind of teaching her and instilling her to like check on herself and like see how her own body is feeling.
Mm,
Um, Otherwise, if I think she wasn't as in tune with her body as she is, I would probably say some of the biggest things that I've heard and read is like sit them down every hour. Whether they have to go or not, sit them down, get used to kind of sitting down and just having that feeling
mm.
of what it feels like to need to go. So that's probably the route we would have been taking if our daughter hadn't just started sitting down on her own.
I love that. I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to practice that because I find so. To be fair, there is some inconsistency in our training because Love is not with us all the time because we're busier on weekends. She'll stay at the grandparents' house, and I don't know if they're on it as much as we try to be. Sometimes actually they're on it more than we try to be. But I wonder if it's the fact that she bounces between locations and different environments that could be affecting that process.
Yeah, I mean, it could, and yeah, it's parenting nowadays is weird, right? Because you're not, in a lot of ways, the primary caregiver, right? That you're with them for their waking hours before you go to work, and after you get home from work.
Hmm.
But like, and I mean, I'm in the same boat. My folks watch Luna every day, basically from like 8:30 to 5:30 when I show up and pick her up. Um, I think the only advantage that I have, I would say, is that my mom used to be a daycare worker, specifically for 2-year-olds.
Oh, that's convenient.
So yeah, exactly. So like, uh, she's been really good about instilling that kind of stuff. I think even if she hadn't worked at a daycare, she loves children. But yeah, I mean, and I can send you some books. There's actually some books from, I don't know if you guys do the Love Every box at all.
Mm-mm.
Um, but yeah, I would highly recommend like the books from there if you can get your hands on them, and then even if you don't watch Daniel Tiger, there's a book from that same episode. So that's all really really good helpful stuff.
Daniel Tiger used to be Love's show, but ever since
Okay.
turning two, she's like not a fan of it anymore. It's
Oh,
weird.
really?
Like we'll try and
Okay.
put it on because I honestly, I'm assuming we're around the same age, if I recall. But I grew up on Mister Rogers' Neighborhood, which is
Oh
essentially
yeah,
what Daniel
absolutely.
Tiger is from anyway, and it kind of embodies that spirit of Mister Rogers' Neighborhood, right? So I do love the stories that they tell in there. Like there was one episode where he got lost in the grocery store. He had to yell for his mom, like things like that to teach children. I think are
Mhm.
really good. So I will have to do that. I think we watched that Daniel Tiger episode because I think if I recall, the main storyline was that they told him to go to the potty even if they didn't have to go to the potty, just to kind of like you said, get
Yeah.
acclimated with it.
Yeah. I won't sing the jingle for you, but yes, that's exactly it.
I mean, I would pay top dollar to hear you sing that jingle.
Yeah. I mean, if you really want to, I absolutely will.
Uh, fun fun fact though, Chris and I, when we would have meetings and whatnot before people would join, we would have conversations about our children. And one time, I think we had like a little icebreaker game, and we talked about like how the count. Someone on Sesame Street has like amazing songs. I can't remember who it was, but we
Oh,
we
the
would
kids,
just
the count for sure. The count
the
is
count
the
the count
count's
is
some of the best
fantastic.
songs.
The number
Yeah.
of the day song with the count much better than the
Oh,
one with the
so
Martians. One with
so
the
good.
Oh goodness. But also that's another thing that Love kind of traded Daniel Tiger for. She's more of a fan of Sesame Street Mecha Builders. I don't know if you ever watched that or
Not the Mecha Builders. Just we're still on the OG.
so it's interesting because the Mecha Builders revolves around problem solving. Like they use the
Oh, okay.
scientific method each episode. Let's test it.
Oh,
Let's try it. Let's keep going until we find the resolution. And she loves the show. She watched. There's only one season, unfortunately, but she's watched the first season maybe like 2 or 3 times at this point because I just like shuffle it when it comes on. But it's a great show.
I will have to do that because like as Luna starts getting older, I really want to introduce like STEM topics into her life because like she's gonna need it
This is
essentially in the
true.
way the industry is going. So
Yes, yes,
yeah,
indeed, and that's something we're going to touch on shortly
yeah,
because I agree. That's one reason why I really like the Mecha Builder show because it starts them early thinking of like problem solving, and I think
that's
that's fun. All right, so aside from potty training, how's everything else going? Like naps, snack time, all that. How are those things
good.
going?
Yeah. Naps. Naps were in a transition period, especially on the weekends.
Hmm.
So I know you guys did it, maybe still do it, but bed sharing and such. So Luna was very much, early pandemic baby, so she got all the snuggle naps that she wanted, essentially. And so that has been slowly starting to kind of peter off a little bit. At my parents' house, she's been great about it. Like she's been sleeping basically by herself. Maybe like the last half hour she wants to be snuggled a little bit.
Hmm.
But for us at home, it's been pretty much snuggle nap central every weekend. Until maybe a month or so ago, I was just like, "Hey, do you want?" Because she's been showing more interest in her bed,
Hmm.
her own bed. So I just threw it out there, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to sleep in your own bed?" And she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Awesome."
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And so yeah, so I laid her down, read a million books to her, and eventually she fell asleep. And she slept in there for, I think, maybe 45 minutes, but it was her first time doing it. So, like, I'm not going to throw shade at that at all.
Yeah, that's
And
development.
so slowly, like, she's been able to go stay asleep in there for maybe an hour, hour and 15 minutes. Um, Today was a little bit of a regression. She was like, I'm not falling asleep in this bed. She was super calm, but she just like she could not relax enough to fall asleep. So I was holding her. And actually, that was the little reason why I was late to do our pre-show check, is because Maddie had to come in and relieve me. But I was also like shaking the cobwebs out because I fell asleep for like 10 minutes. I was like, oh, I gotta
Oh man, you cannot
go.
fight those toddler naps. When they go down,
No.
sometimes you go down with them. I've been there way too often.
Yeah, so napping is pretty good for the most part, like in getting better. Eating and snacking, we did baby led weaning, so she is a voracious self eater for the most part. It is funny though that right now, in general, she's wanting us to feed her again, or feed her actually for the first time. But there's a reason, and it's because my brother had my nephew, or my sister-in-law had a nephew back in July of last year.
Mm.
And so he also goes to my parents during the day, but they aren't practicing baby led weaning yet. And so my parents are feeding him. And so Luna's seeing that, and she's like, every once she'll feed herself for like half a dinner or half a meal, and then be like, "Can you feed me, Daddy? Mommy, can you feed me?" And then she's very much into like role playing at this point, and so like she'll even role play that she is my nephew, and that my wife is my sister-in-law, and that I'm my brother, and like
Wow.
all of that stuff. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
pretty fun though. Like that's
yeah.
quite the imagination to set up that entire scenario. That's
Oh yeah,
pretty cool. I like that.
yeah.
Well,
That's it's her justification for being fed.
look, look. Sometimes you don't feel like doing it yourself, so
Yeah,
let
I
someone else
feel
take the reins.
you. Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of cool though. We kind of have a similar experience, not so much with the younger nephew. My niece is older; she's 8. This is funny because this them being together is fun to see how impressionable love can be because of my niece. Since she's older, she wants to act like she's a big kid. Like, for example, my niece will ride her skates and loves like, I want to do that too. She wants to ride
Hmm.
a bike. I want to do that too. Like, she wants to be like this older child because she sees that she can do things that she can't. Uh, it's both good and bad because, like I said, my niece is older, so she's developed a little sass here and there, and so now Love's developing a little sass. She learned how to roll her eyes, and I'm like, all right, where's my baby at? Where's my baby? But it's good though because it also is teaching her to be more independent. Like when we brush our teeth, we usually do it together, and I'm usually brushing her teeth. But now she's like, I want to do it, so she'll brush her teeth, and she's really got the hang of it by watching me, watching Joy, and it's been fun. Like she tries to really emulate what she sees, and it's beautiful. Um,
It's wild, man.
mm,
They're sponges when it comes to that kind of stuff,
they really are, which
for
is why,
good and bad.
yes, which is why I'm glad I wash my mouth around her.
Yeah,
Like I try not to use any profanity. Sometimes S word might come up, I burn myself or something. Other
yeah.
than that, it's fun. Like I watch what I play around her. Like I'm big on video games. When I got my PS5, I was playing Spider Man pretty heavy, but then I realized that she would pretend to be Spider Man and walk up and say, "I beat you up, I'm Spider Man." So I thought
Oh
it was
god.
non-violent or fantasy violence, but Love was just like Spider Man. So I kind
You're
of
not playing like Astro's Playroom or something in front of her.
so here's the game that I found that she really enjoys me playing because for some reason she like loves cats. Stray on PS5
Oh,
is
okay.
that's the game of choice, and she's like, "Daddy, look at the kitty cat jump." So stuff like that is a little more fun and lighthearted. So I don't mind
Yeah,
playing that. Um,
yeah.
it's been quite the ride, and we didn't really know what was going to happen because, like as you mentioned, both of them were born during the pandemic, so we didn't know like what return to work looks like. So there's been a lot of adjustments that we had to make as far as that goes. Because now that we've kind of ramped up being busy, like she spends the weekends at the in-laws, so we can knock out the work. I mentioned to you before we started, we're thinking about putting her in school now. And that's terrifying for me because no one but my in laws have watched her before. So I don't know how I feel about leaving my baby with, quote unquote strangers, but
Right.
I know it's a part of life. And I'm just curious if you and your wife have thought the same things or if, you've thought that far into the future about what that looks like and how does that make you feel?
About like childcare and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, we have definitely talked about it. We're nervous about it, but also open to it
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit. She's just she's just one of those kids that like she just wants to socialize. Like she
Same.
is like we'll go to the park and she'll like want to befriend like every kid. But parks are hard. Parks are also really hard for like kids to meet other kids, it seems like. Because they're
Yeah.
like it's clicky. Like you
It's
go like the
clicky.
kids go they go with a group of other kids and then they're not gonna want to like interact with some random kid, right? So she struggles a lot. Not because she's not wanting to, but like she struggles to make new friends at the park. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, we're definitely like interested in childcare just because we want her to have that socializing with other kids and learning, with other kids and stuff. Um, you know, honestly, the thing that probably scares me the most, there are two things that scare me the most. One is having her get sick more often
Mm.
because obviously we're not having to deal with that right now. And then two, honestly, the wait list. Like I don't know what it's like out there for you, but like it is months and months long wait list. In some places like it's even like a years long wait list for kids to get into like daycare.
Just
Um,
same here. Just same here.
yeah, okay,
You got to know someone to really like get in there. But
yeah,
unfortunately, I don't know anyone, so it is
yeah,
what it is.
same, same.
It
And
kind of
so
works
like
in my
that's
favor
what's
though.
scary.
It works in my
Yeah.
favor for the fact that apparently they charge you more if they're not potty trained, and but if
Oh,
they are party trained and they are potty trained, the tuition is a little bit lower. So
oh, yeah. I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense.
yeah, more effort into changing pull ups or Pampers versus them just going to a restroom and using it themselves. So I
Right.
guess that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are things that we have thought about based on our schedules ramping up and just making sure that she gets the proper attention that we feel as though she needs. Like she's a smart kid,
Mhm.
and we think she could do nothing but get smarter by going to school. But at the same time, we don't know how we'll feel about being away from her because it's not something we've ever done with anyone that's not family. So it's interesting.
Yeah, because during the week she's still home with you or Joy, right?
And because
Yeah.
we mostly spend our time like going out to stores and stuff, she'll ride with us.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, side note, this is not on the outline or agenda, but we recently changed her car seat maybe 3 months ago to a front facing
Okay.
seat because she finally reached the weight limit. Is Luna in a front facing seat yet?
No, she's still in a rear facing seat. The one that we got can also converts into a front facing seat.
Hmm.
So we'll be able to honestly ride this one until she's probably too big to be in a car seat, or at least needing, then moving into a booster or whatever. But I mean, Luna's tall. Luna's in the 99th percentile for her height. So she's like, her legs are definitely up there, but all the research that we've done says, try and leave them in rear facing as long as you can. But, you know, we'll see what it looks like in 6 months when she's at the point that that Love is at, though, too.
Yeah, because Love is also tall. So before we got our new car, she would have to rest her feet like on the side because she
Oh
otherwise
wow.
her knees would just be bent the entire time. And then she just hit the weight mark like a few months ago, which the max weight for her car seat is 32, and she ended up being like 33 and a half. Um, but now that she has a front facing seat, when I tell you the world has changed for this girl, she can see. Like we live in Georgia, so it's a lot of like farm animals and stuff. So like right across the street from us, we have horses, and on the ride to my in laws, you can see cows, goats, whatever. She's like, "Look, Daddy, a cow!" Like the conversation does not stop. It's both a gift and a curse. I enjoy it because it's adorable. I get to converse with my daughter as I'm driving, but she pays attention to everything. Um, I'm getting off outline here, but the other day, a couple of days ago, actually, we got into a bit of a fender bender,
Oh
and
no.
it was the most terrifying thing to me because I've never been, knock on wood, but I've never been in an accident before. But we had just went to lunch as a family, and the one thing I don't like about the front facing car seat, like if she falls asleep, like she'll lean forward like this, and I hate that about it. But she wasn't asleep; she was awake. So they ended up hitting us in the rear. making our whole car like kind of shift forward. So
Mhm.
immediately, first thing me and Joy do is like check and make sure she's okay. Thankfully, she's perfect, and she wasn't hurt. We got a few bumps and whatnot, but love is okay. That was our main focus.
Of course.
So
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
so when it came to getting this front facing car seat, kind of like you mentioned earlier, doing research, we were like Googling, looking at reviews, watching YouTube videos just to make sure. And this car seat wins. I love it. Uh,
What is it? Do you mind? Do you
it's
remember what it is?
it's a Graco. No, it's a Graco or Chico. One of them. Graco 3 in 1.
Okay.
It's kind of similar to what you mentioned. It can do rear facing, but like I mentioned, she's not to wait for it anymore. So it does front facing, booster, and like what's the other thing? I think booster's the last thing actually. Never mind.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it does all of that.
Oh,
So it was a good investment, but it was just a scary situation because we didn't know what to expect in that, and when it happened so suddenly, it was just terrifying.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, I'm
but
glad you guys are okay. That's terrible. That is pretty scary.
yeah. That's what I was telling my friend the other day because Joy made a post about it because we had to cancel our event on Friday. A friend reached out to me and said, "Oh man, how much is it going to cost you to fix it?" I was like, "Bro, I could care less about the cost. I'm just glad we were able to
Right.
walk away from it."
Right.
Because I had never been anything like that, and up until now, neither is love. Oh, but the reason I brought that up too is we also talked about children are sponges, and now I want to say love might be a little scared of trucks now because what hit us was a truck, and
Mm.
she has a really good memory, and she has a bug bite on her leg right now because mosquitoes and whatnot, but she'll say red truck and that's exactly what hit us. And she's been saying that for the
Oh,
past couple of days. And prior to that, it was like, "Oh, Day, look at the truck." But now it's like red
right.
truck, ouchie, you know. And I don't,
Oh,
yeah, I don't like that happened. But we're just trying to, let her know things are okay. Mommy and Daddy are fine. You're okay. I know it's scary, but yeah,
luckily, though, too, their attention span changes quickly, and so hopefully, it'll with a couple more weeks behind her, she'll be into it again. That's terrifying, though. It's
I know, I
you
know.
feel so bad. It's like you want to be able to protect them, but it's like you can't do that. Like you can't do everything.
You cannot. So that's why I try to just take her mind off it, play ball, take her outside, take her for a walk. But yeah, it was a scary moment for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you
Um,
guys are okay.
I appreciate that, Chris. Thank you. So, talking about scary moments like that, do you feel as though you were prepared? Since we're both first time fathers, do you feel as though you were
Mhm.
prepared for your journey on parenthood, or do you feel like a lot
That's
of
a
things
good
you don't
question.
apply?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can only be as prepared as you ever can be for anything. Like I did some research. I read a handful of books, but there's still stuff that you're not ever fully prepared for, and it's so cliche because everyone says that, right? Like, oh, you're never fully prepared. You're never ready to be a parent. And it's like, well, I think that's a yes and no kind of thing. But I mean, I think that I was prepared from a big picture perspective. But it's kind of those micro things that you're just not prepared for.
Mm,
And it's just like you can read all you want about how to change a diaper, but it's like until you're in it, like you don't know what that's like. And like even generationally, right? Like uh it's different from like how maybe your parents raised you versus like how you're going to raise your own children. So it's
mhm.
like you're treading you're treading a new path because of that alone, right? Because you're not falling in line with exactly what they did.
Yeah, that's something I don't know about. I don't know about you, but when it comes to like the decisions I made for my child, it's like I want to incorporate more healthy food options because when I was growing up, that wasn't really something that was like given to me. Like, yeah, I had fruit and
Hmm.
vegetables, but you know, love is a vegan child, right? So she only knows fruits and vegetables. When she was younger, the first meal we ever gave her was like kale or something. She's kale and spinach, but she tore it up, and it's like that's
Yeah.
all she knows. Like compared to my niece, who I mentioned she spends a lot of time with, my niece will eat like chicken tenders, which is what most kids eat,
Hmm.
which is why it's on every kid's meal. But Love will be
Right.
like, "Can I have seaweed?" Like I give her seaweed snacks instead of chips. Like she asks,
Yeah.
even when it comes to snacking, she'll ask for orange, apple, banana, pineapples. Like she'll ask for different things, and I feel as though, and people ask me all the time, like, what if she wanted to change her mind when she got older and not be vegan? I'd be like, well, she's a person; she can make her own decisions, but I just want to
Sure.
put her on the right path because I feel as though when I was younger, that wasn't given to me. I know I ate a lot of the fast food, the chicken tenders and stuff, so I try to teach better eating habits to her. Like she's very active. We go for walks every day. Like she
Yeah.
likes to be outside. We go to the backyard. She has a little toy slide. I try to keep her active. When I was coming up, I was a pudgy kid, husky as they called me, and I want to break that cycle. I
Yeah.
want her to be healthy and enjoy her life for as long as she can.
Yeah. I feel you on that. I grew up as a picky eater. Well, apparently I initially wasn't a picky eater when I was like little. Like I used to eat scallions, green onions, like right out of my grandfather's garden, and
That's
just like
cool.
bite them.
That's cool.
And
That's
then
what love does
eventually,
now with our garden.
yeah, eventually something changed, and I was just like the pickiest of picky eaters. And so it wasn't until I moved out to Washington that I was just like, all right, I'm gonna change. Like this is an opportunity for a fresh start. So like that, like how I ate was included in that. Um, but yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, Luna was big lead weaning, so she um, was really in control, like a lot of how she ate and what she was eating. I mean, obviously it's what we prepare for her roughly, but man, she is this like a fruit monster. Like she will eat every blueberry, blackberry, raspberry that she can.
She has
I
excellent
mean,
taste.
and then actually earlier today, I had a watermelon guava that we had a bunch that were like fresh and ready and ripe, and so I cut some of them up, and she just like ran up to the counter and like snatched it up basically. So it was like she loves any kind of fruit. Nori seaweed snack, like definitely a top 10.
Hmm.
Um, rice crackers and stuff like that. She loves all that kind of stuff.
I'm loving all your snacks so far. They sound like
Yeah,
exactly what we have downstairs.
yeah. Pears have like slowly started climbing the list as well for her,
Okay.
which is yeah. I mean, I respect it. Like I can get down on a pear anytime. Especially the only thing is, and let me ask you this too. This is a very much a tangent,
That's fine.
but do you find pears to be more inconsistent in flavor than apples?
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes I can bite into
Right?
a pear and it doesn't even taste like a pear. There's like
Yeah.
barely any taste.
So disappointing. So disappointing.
Well, that depends though. What kind of apples do you normally gravitate towards? Because I
Well,
only eat the
so
green apples, and I feel like those are
okay.
consistent.
So normally I go for their pink ladies
Hmm.
or Honey Crisp. Those are probably the top two in the house.
Okay, great choices, by the way. Excellent
Yeah.
choices.
I feel like I had never heard of pink ladies until like I became an adult. Like I mean I grew up in New York State where it's like apples central.
The big
Like I
one.
went apple picking every year since I when I grew up. And like I don't ever remember seeing pink ladies, especially because like Granny Smith were like my jam because they were so sour and I liked that real sour tartness and
My
like
favorite.
pink ladies are that. And it's like where were pink ladies my entire life?
Oh, so here's my question for you: are pink ladies sold organically? Because if not, they might be. What's the word I'm looking for? Not GMO. Maybe.
GMO?
Yeah, they might be. Yeah, they might be GMO.
No, no, I think you can get organic.
Okay, okay. Because I know certain things came up randomly, like these newer cotton candy grapes and stuff like that. Like I don't think I've never found those organically. Um. So yeah. Okay. Look at our little random tangent on fruit. Okay. What I'm talking about. If you're checking this out on YouTube, leave your favorite fruit in the comments. 'Cause I'm curious. My favorite fruit is actually a grapefruit, and that is also Love's favorite
I
food.
remember you telling me that.
I
I
love
remember
grapefruit
you
because
telling
I feel like every time we had a meeting, like or after my lunch or something, I'd be eating a grapefruit, finish it
me.
up.
Yeah, probably.
I always had grapefruits on hand because they're somewhat cheap. They used to be cheaper, but we're not gonna get on that.
Well, everything used to be cheaper,
I
but now we're
know,
starting to sound like old men.
but we have seen inflation in real time. So,
Okay, you want to talk about inflation? Do you remember what the price of gas was when you started driving?
oh yeah, when I started driving, oh hold up, it fluctuates. I want to say it's about 199 to something, like
When
really
you
low.
started driving?
Yeah, like really low in price.
I remember that gas was probably like 65 cents when I started driving. And I mean, I'm not that much older than you, but still,
Well, hold
it was
on.
like
Time out, pause. Where did you start driving at though?
in Syracuse.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Up north too. 65 cents.
yeah.
All right.
I remember it being okay, even if it wasn't 65 cents, I remember it being sub $1 when I started driving.
I remember it being under $1, but this is way before I started driving. I didn't start driving until 2012. To be fair,
Oh,
I lived in a city that had major transportation, so I really didn't
oh yeah.
need to drive like that.
Oh no, I started driving like as soon as I turned like 16.
Oh, see, no, I was still taking the bus at that point. So then you are
Oh
correct. It would be below $1 then, because that's the
yeah,
last, probably the last time I remember that.
yeah.
Because
Sorry, I took us way off topic
no,
there
that's fine,
between
man. We're here to have fun.
old men talk and fruit prices.
Look, we're here to kick it. I'm just asking questions in between, so I appreciate it for sure.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like I've always had good conversation with you, man. So it's great.
Oh yeah, it's always been fun.
Um, so moving on, the next question I want to ask you was, what goals have you set for yourself when it comes to parenting, and have you already started acting on those?
Uh, I guess I didn't really. I think my first goal was survive. uh, Mostly like, especially when I first became a parent, right? Because you're like, people are always like, "Oh, you're gonna be so tired," and blah blah blah, and it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, I expect to be tired, but I didn't realize how bad it was gonna be. And that real big cliche of like sleep when the baby sleeps, like we didn't do that, even though we
Oh,
probably should
I
have.
say that's a bold move because I learned
Yeah,
early on that's how you do it. That's how
yeah.
you do it.
With if we ever decide to have a second child, I probably will nap more at the same time. Um, but again, like Luna wanted snuggle naps, and so we were terrified of like falling asleep and her waking up and like crawling off the bed or something like that. So part of the reason why we didn't really do that. Um, but I don't know. Like I think my goal at this point is first and like one, just give her a great childhood. Like I want her to have fond memories of childhood. Our parents always did the best they could, as all parents I think strive to do.
Hmm.
But I think one of my big goals too is to not give her any of the one, not pass my baggage onto her. And I think the other thing too is like I'm also trying not to say those little weird isms type of things that my parents would say to me that like just kind of continue to stick in your craw, like and like either shape the way you see the world, or and I'm not talking racism or that kind of stuff, but like
I get what
uh you know just like little things that like your parents may tell you or like even just say around you and you're like, huh, like now that I remember that, like that totally shaped my life, or the way I see the world. And so I'm just really trying to make sure I watch what I say, how I say it, and uh, just always try and shape the my worldview around her to be positive, or at least assume positive intent. And then I think that the other last thing too is like just sorry, I don't know if you can hear her in the background. She woke up from her nap. But the last thing that I think that I really do is I'm really like trying to be cognizant of how I portray uh, the opposite sex to her in a lot of ways, right? Like how I portray what a man should be, and not a partner, because like I'm not going to assume that she's going to be heterosexual, but I'm also not assuming she's going to be, gay either. But
Hmm.
it's more of like how should a man carry himself,
Hmm.
or just how should a good person carry themselves. Um, but I'm also like being really cognizant even now. Like, so she's potty training. Obviously, we talked about that, and so like I'm really trying not to uh tickle her, play with her, and make sure that I'm not getting anywhere near her private areas because it's like those are hers, and I want her to know that at unfortunately 2.5 years old that like those are her private areas, and that like I'm not going to tickle her there because she was asking me actually yesterday like, oh, tickle my bottom, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. I will tickle your tummy, I'll tickle your arms, but I'm not going to tickle your bottom right now because that's a private area and that's only for you right now.
I love that. I love that, and that's a lot of what I think we were talking. I think you have both your parents in your life, your mother and your father. Is that correct? See,
I am, yeah, unfortunate enough.
okay. So, unfortunately, I never had a father around me, but I'm also, a man. So the interaction would be a little different. But I
Hmm.
feel as though, like, as a parent, regardless, your child's always looking up to you. So it is important to watch what you say and watch what you do and what you teach them early on. And I think what you're
Hmm.
teaching her is very important because I was actually curious about that myself. How to explain like private parts to her. Like we haven't. She's children go through this interesting phase where they start to explore themselves, just kind of
Hmm.
learn what their body does and, what's this on my body. So like having that conversation with her, like this is your private parts and things like that, I think it's important, especially, as she gets older, because while you may be a respectable man, some of the men she encounters may not be, and that's
Yeah.
one, that's a very scary thing to ever think of, but it's also
Yeah.
a reality because we see the news, we see how certain people interact towards, women. And as a father, you spoke about this early on, it's our job to protect them. And that means educating them on, how to protect themselves, when to say no if someone's touching you
Hmm.
and things like that. And that's very important
Yeah.
for when it comes time for school too. Because again,
Yeah.
you never know.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, the other thing too is that it's also like the respecting the body thing, I think goes beyond even like the male female aspect of it, right? Like, you know, unfortunately, it's not just men that are child molesters or whatever. It's, a female daycare worker could do the same thing. And it's honestly, it's terrible that we even have to think about it. It's terrible that we even have to spend time talking about it.
I agree, and I hate that that's a thought, but it's when I think about things, I think about the good way they can play out and the bad way they can play out, and I need to weigh those things. Like I said, we're
Sure.
struggling with childcare right now for that very fact. Like I don't know, I've heard horror stories. I have a friend that's a attorney that specifically handles like daycare issues, and the
Oh,
fact that
wow.
that's a thing terrifies me. And
Yeah.
it's a good thing I know him in case things like that happen, but the fact that there's a law firm dedicated to that is scary. It's
Yeah.
very scary.
Yeah.
And
I, the one thing I can say, at least as a pro tip, I haven't given you a pro tip in a long time.
you have not, and I
Uh,
appreciate these.
you appreciate that I haven't given you one?
No, I appreciate the fact that they
Okay.
exist.
Yeah. No, but at least in Washington State, I know that you can look up childcare centers on like one of the government sites
Hmm.
to see like what I think I think like what and if any allegations have been against them, and like making sure that they're all of the people that are there and are licensed and how long they've been licensed for, like all of like there's a decent amount of like public information I think that you can find out about childcare centers before you even like talk to them for the most part.
Oh, great. That I love that. I didn't know that. If you could send me the link. You said it's specifically for Washington, though?
I mean, yeah, the ones that I was looking at were for Washington. I don't know if Georgia does that.
I'll look them up.
I would hope so.
I would hope so too, because that seems like a very beneficial site to have when it comes time to
Yeah,
pick like the school for your child. So I'll
yeah,
look into that. So I appreciate that pro tip. Pro tip.
yeah.
And it's funny, we had a bit of a laugh about it because when we were working together, Chris would always give me pro tips because I was new to some of the things we were using at the company, and he'd be like, "Pro tip: if you do Command X, you can ABC." Although that's cut. That's very simple, but it'd be something along those lines. And he is actually probably one of the reasons why most of the tools I use now I'm familiar with, because I am using the Google suite, and prior to that I was full Office, but now I'm all Google.
Um,
So thank you.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, not unfortunate that I'm employed, but the new company that I work for they're the opposite of our previous employer. They're like 90% Windows,
Oh,
all on the Microsoft 365
sure.
suite and Teams. And it is like, let me just tell you, Teams, just like Skype and just like Link before it, is a hot
Oh,
mess.
absolutely. Oh,
It
I
is a
hated
hot
Teams.
mess. And it is like buggy as all get out. And now, and we both work in tech, so obviously we talking about tech at one point was gonna be inevitable. But I also have no other place right now to like let this particular the steam off about this particular topic out.
Go
So
for
I
it.
apologize to you, and I apologize to your listeners and
Go
viewers.
for it.
Uh, but Microsoft is pulling a very like early '90s, late '90s, early 2000s move with Teams right now, or sorry, with Bing, the browser, not the Chat GPT like thing, but their browser, where if you're on Windows and you're using Teams and have Chrome or anything else as your default other than Bing, if you click on a link in Teams, it opens it in Bing.
That's terrible.
And yeah, and it's the same, and they're doing the same thing with Outlook. And it's all because they're like, hey, you want to use Bing, right? Use Bing. Please use Bing. You like Bing, don't you? You love Bing. Please use Bing.
Said no
And
one
it's
ever.
like, yeah, but and the thing is like, and then I saw what makes it even worse is that I saw that in a Chrome browser, they were injecting an ad in the Chrome browser to switch to Bing. But like if you were on that site in any other browser or any other platform, that ad would not exist. It was like the operating system or Teams or Bing or something is like injecting that into the browser page so that it could advertise to switch to Bing. And I was like, that is it's like such an overreach and overstep. And honestly, it starts stepping into like antitrust areas again.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
that's what they got into trouble for in like in the late '90s, early 2000s. Anyway, it's like,
I remember that.
what are you doing? Like that is just, and it's just to me, it's disrespectful to the user, right? Like, and just the fact that it's like people don't want to use it, so like don't force that upon them. And it's just the worst to me. And so I apologize for that rant,
No, no,
but
I love
it's
that
just
rant. I haven't touched a Windows machine since I started working for our previous employer.
yeah,
So
that,
I am very grateful for that, because I used to hate working with Windows. Working in the school systems, that's all they use because it's
right.
cheap. You can buy a PC for a lot cheaper. You can buy a Mac. So I am very tired of Windows. So I do not have that experience, because I have a feature on my Mac that turns off like apps tracking me, apps pushing me ads. So I
Yeah.
love that. Um,
I I
oh,
think the last thing, sorry, the
you're good. What do you
last
think?
thing though, that is, I find it so hilarious because Microsoft will drag Chrome as often as they can and just talk so much crap about Chrome. But at the end of the day, Bing is Chromium based, and if it wasn't for Chrome, their new
Mhm.
browser wouldn't even exist. So I just
We
like
still be
don't
on Internet
understand it.
Explorer.
Yeah.
uh,
Well, yeah, it's beyond me.
so now I'm curious. We're going to say sidetrack just for one more question. But what's your browser of choice when it comes to using your machine?
Ooh, I like this question. Um, so for work, it's Chrome. At home, it's like 15% Chrome, but I'm actually using a new browser called Arc.
Oh, haven't heard this one. Oh, let me
Yeah.
look it up while we talk. 'Cause
So Arc is Chromium based as well, but they're doing a lot of like really interesting things. And this sounds kind of icky at first, like you you just like, or like, I wouldn't be able to get rid of my bookmarks, but like there are no bookmarks. But you kind of have like a sidebar where we'll call them bookmarks because I mean, they don't call them bookmarks, but like they kind of are.
Hmm.
You have all of your sites off to the left, what would normally be bookmarked. And if you click on them, it loads them in essentially real time. But you can have different spaces as well. So that way, kind of like on Mac OS, how you can slide between different desktop spaces,
Hmm.
you can do the same thing in the browser.
Interesting.
So if you're one of those people where like you're working, you could have like a workspace and then a personal space, and then you could have like a space specifically for the podcast, right? So that way all of your stuff is separate, and you could have even like saved bookmarks specifically for those spaces as well. Um, so it's pretty interesting. The only thing I may say is like a slight knock against them is that I don't love the left navigation. I
Hmm.
don't love all the stuff living on the left. Um, and their mobile app is still in its infancy, but like it's not really a full-on browser. You can only basically have like one window open at a time.
That's corny.
But it's because they call it more of like a companion app to your desktop browser than like a full blown browser of it on its own.
Understood.
Um, and the thing is like I think like it's one of those things where it's a very niche browser, and it's like if you're a tinkerer, I think it's great. You want to play with new technology, it's great. It's definitely not for everyone. I can say that for sure.
Okay. Well, I will be trying it out today. I got it queued up right here
Yeah,
to download. The
yeah,
one I use is Brave. It's also Chromium based, but it prevents more pop ups and like website tracking.
sure.
So that's the
Yeah.
one I prefer. There's so many these days. You have options for day. I remember when there was only Safari, Internet Explorer,
Netscape.
Opera, Netscape. Ooh, Netscape. I built a website through Netscape actually. You know,
Okay.
that's old school. It was a gaming review site. I have no idea what the URL is now. It's from when I was in 10th grade. But anyway, Opera and I forget Firefox. There's only a handful of them,
Mhm.
and now you have so many options. It's like they. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's
I mean, I think it's good, right? Because the thing is like competition breeds improvement, I would say. And so,
this is true.
you know, where some browsers excel in some things, and it forces sometimes the other browsers to pick that up as well. So yeah, I think it's good.
Okay, that's right. So that's our random tech segue, which I'm cool with though, because I enjoy talking tech with people. So thank you. Um, we can really just kind of just flow with it at this point. But what's been one of the most challenging things of fatherhood for you, and how have you overcome them?
I think the hardest thing for me is that like, and it gives me a lot of insight to like my own father,
Hmm.
and it's that like, and I know it's different for you because of our previous conversations when we were working together, but like 99% of the time, if both of us are home, my wife and I, if we're both home, Luna is going to be attached to her like like glue essentially.
Hmm.
Um, and like any little thing, if she gets like a bump or a bruise, it is never like, Daddy, hold me, Daddy, I need you. It is mommy, mommy, mommy. And then but if I'm the first one to get to her, because like, say Maddie's getting ready or something, um, Luna, I'll be like, baby, are you okay? Like, where did you get hurt? And she'll be like, no, Daddy, leave, like, don't talk. Her big thing is like, don't talk to me.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's I guess I've started to grow a little bit of a callus to it, but it is like, yeah, don't talk to me. At least we've gotten her to the point now that we're trying to correct how she, help her express herself in a better way.
Hmm.
And so when she says don't talk to me, what she's really saying is like, I need space or like something like that. So we'll try and like give a little bit of a course correction, Maddie's pretty good at being like, Daddy's just trying to check on you to make sure that you're okay. But yeah, I think that's probably one of the most challenging things is that it's just like, I want to love you and I want to care for you. Like, sometimes you really just don't want that from me.
That's that's
And
funny.
yeah, and like, I don't know if I have overcome it. I'll say, as I said, I think I'm just starting to like grow a callus to it, but it hurt for a long time. Like, it's tough to not take some of this stuff personally. Like,
That's
it's
insane.
deeply personal, right? Like,
Yeah.
so
I,
yeah.
mine is actually the reverse. I feel like if Joy was here, she'd probably disagree, but I tend to see that love kind of runs more towards me than mommy. Um, Now, when she was much younger, like mommy was the go-to because obviously mommy was everything at the time because nursing and all that they had a different kind of bond. But as she got older, now she wants to do things I do. Like if I toss the ball, she's like, "Daddy, I catch the ball." Like if I go for a walk, she want to go for a walk. Anything I'm going to do, I take the dog out. She wants to go out with me. She's always, but I think that's because of the pandemic and me working from home, like mostly, and Joy still being busy during those times. Like she just spent a little more time with me. Like I remember when the pandemic first started, love was like 4 months. She would just be in my office with me doing tummy time and stuff like that. Like we had to do,
Yeah.
our bond is different because of I had the ability to be home with her more, which allowed more flexibility professionally for Joy. So I think that might be why we do it. Why it's gone that way for me. The most challenging thing for me is like a discipline type thing. Like I find it really hard.
Mm.
Joy laughs at me because like she said, "You ain't raising your voice for real." And I'm like, it's hard for me to raise my voice. That's my baby. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm a little too gentle when it comes to that.
Mm.
Like I mean, if you're listening to this episode, you probably listen to other ones, but the one I had with her on here, I mentioned how we don't do any type of spankings. Like we grew up with spanking,
Yep.
but that's something we just don't want to do. So
It doesn't work.
it doesn't. If anything, it just pushes them away, makes them rebel, and I don't want that. I want her to always feel like she can trust us and come to us about anything. But so we don't do any spanking. So it really just comes to hey, raising your voice, put that down, stuff like that. And apparently I'm too soft. But it's just me. I don't feel comfortable yelling at her, like disciplining her. The other day, she was for some reason when children don't take a nap, they become very, very feisty. I don't know why, or at least love does. So I did have to take her bunny away from her to give her a little time out, and then she just started bawling. And the only thing I wanted to do was just give it right back to her, but I had to have her wait like a minute or two so she calmed down. And it was hard for me. Like it's hard for me to discipline my baby because I don't. She's not doing
Mhm.
wrong. I'm just trying to course correct her so she can understand, certain things you just don't do. But
Right.
it's a very challenging thing for me, and I have not overcome it yet. I still feel like I'm extremely soft, and I think Joy would agree on that.
Yeah. It's tough. Like, I feel you. You want to let them have everything and do everything, but at the same time, you also want them to be like a competent human being that exists in the world too, right?
Exactly.
So it's really tough with that kind of stuff because and I think for me, maybe going back to even like your previous question, like what is the most challenging, is that like I want to be clear, I would never get so angry that I would like hit her, spank her, or anything like that. You would always walk away. And I don't have a temper. Like I'm one of the most chill people that I think a lot of people will ever meet. But
I can
there
agree
are
with this.
times, man, where it's like, oh my God, like she'll do something and it's like so triggering. And so like trying to realize like what is triggering and then either honestly, a lot of it is course correct myself because like kids don't know any better. They're still learning. They're still
Hmm.
figuring out the world. A lot of the times there are the things that we find that are issues are like on us as the adult and as the parent. It's not the child's fault because they have 2 years of experience. Like, tell me anybody that's a professional at anything at 2 years old, 3 years
Look,
old,
look,
right?
look, I got 6, 7 years of experience in my field, and I'm still learning. So
Yeah,
this is crazy. This is very true, and that's why I don't tend to get upset with her because she's just learning.
yeah,
Granted, sometimes I do think she tests the waters. Like I tell her, don't climb on this. she'll climb on it. And I tell her it's because she'll
Yeah,
hurt herself, but she's just like she's a very brave kid. Like I've never seen a kid that's like has no fear. Like she'll jump from something with no fear, and I'm like, you need to chill,
yeah,
because I'm afraid you will hurt something.
yeah. But I mean, like that's also them like figuring out the world, right? Like, and they're gonna test and push boundaries because like that's what they do. That's how they learn, right? So it's just that's and honestly too, like good, bad, or indifferent, they want your reaction.
Hmm.
That's why they say like if your kid's doing something wrong, unless they have like a knife, like ignore them. Because a lot of the times they'll stop doing it because you're not giving them that attention.
This is very true. Dang, what was I watching? I'm about to take it back. I don't know if you were ever a Simpsons fan.
I'm a lapsed Simpsons fan, but I mean, like teenage years, right? Like up into my teenage years, I watched it.
Okay. Well, there's an episode of Treehouse of Horror where like statues, billboards come to life and they're like terrorizing the city, but only because people are paying attention to them. And they found
Mm,
out the only way to stop them was to not pay attention. And in order to get you to pay attention, they would do something even crazier. But as long as you ignore them, they stop doing it. As you kind of hinted to, that's kind of the same with children. Like if Love's grabbing something, well, let me not say grabbing something, but she's picking something up I told her maybe not to have. If I like ignore her and don't give it anything, she'll just put it back like, oh, just to test the water. So it's like, oh, all right, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. I don't know, but I think it's fun. I think it's funny that that is the case with children. Like if you don't give them energy, if you don't give them energy toward things, they uh they kind of just teeter off and go back to what they were doing. I see you added something to the outline. That's hilarious because I'm watching it in real time. But I do have one last question, and we're gonna go into that because I have thoughts for
yeah.
sure. Um, you hinted to it that prior to our recording. I mentioned I don't really want to give love technology. Reason for that is because one, I don't really care for technology like that. Like I don't like being absorbed by it, like to the point where I work in tech. So when I get off the clock, I really don't want to see any devices. Like do not disturb is like on for me, and I will not be bothered. Uh,
I don't know about that. I've listened to previous episodes, and I distinctly remember Joy calling you out on being you on YouTube all the time.
so that's different though. That's an entertainment. So I do that through my TV. I do that through my TV, and no, that's called research.
Okay, okay, okay.
But no. Like, and I don't. All right. For example, let me see. I've been in and out of stores, and I see parents just hand their children the phone just to get them to chill,
Oh
and I don't like that at
yeah. Mm.
all. Like and I feel like that's not really interacting with your children. And anywhere I go, I feel like I see children with iPads, like, and I feel like they get younger and younger. They're like swiping and swiping, and sometimes they do that without parents paying attention. And if you're not careful, you don't know what your child's being exposed to, and it could be something that's completely out of the wheelhouse for them. Like my niece
Oh
likes to
yeah.
play Roblox, but Roblox is just a server of games that anyone can really create. And there's games that are adult oriented that children should just get to, and you don't know what your child is paying attention to or learning
Yeah.
from that. And I don't know, that's scary to me. And I also watch Black Mirror. I don't know if you've ever watched Black Mirror before.
I tried watching, I think the first or whatever season was like the season that everybody started watching. Um,
Shoot, I don't even know. I've been watching it since it came out.
I think it was, yeah, I just remember like one of the one, it was the one season that I watched was one of the episodes where it was basically like the world was social media engagement and like you couldn't afford like a specific apartment if you didn't have like enough likes and friends and stuff like that. Like that was probably one of the ones that really stuck with me.
And that's kind of what I'm not a fan of, like social media and
Mhm.
like doing things for social media. Like it's really irritating. Like, I don't know. Remember the Tide Pods thing? It was all over the news. Like people were eating
Yeah.
Tide Pods, like that kind of stuff. I don't want them finding that. I have dishwasher pods here. Granted, they're out of reach for her, but say one day she's tall. Say one day I leave it on the counter and I had to run to the bathroom or something. Next thing I know, my daughter's munching on Tide Pods or dishwasher pods
Right.
because she saw it on the internet. It's what
Mhm.
people are doing. It's just like the things they can be exposed to. I just want to. I don't mind it. Like I'm not gonna lie, I do give her the iPad. I have a coloring app, but I just let her do that. There's
Sure.
no web, no YouTube. She just interacts with that because coloring is something she loves to do, and she sees me use my iPad for something similar, and she's like, "Oh, I want to do it too." But what are your thoughts on when it comes to technology and children?
Yeah, I mean, we're a little bit in that same vein. Excuse me. We try and limit screen time like as much as possible. Um, there are definitely those days where like Maddie may be going to get her hair or her nails done or something like that, and so I will throw some Bluey on or something like that because I need to get through the dishes quickly. Downside with Bluey's, they're all like 7-minute episodes, so it's like I
Yeah,
need to hustle through those dishes.
super short.
Uh, they are, but yeah, I think in general though, like we definitely try and limit the technology, but I also like don't hide technology from her though either. Like, you know, she knows what my iPad is, but she only knows for the most part that it's what she uses when we go on a plane.
Hmm.
And she does, and so like she has seen my iPad out a couple of times, and she'll be like, "I want to watch Bluey, I want to watch Bluey," and it's like, well, we don't need to watch Bluey right now. And truthfully, like I try and if she's gonna watch something, I'd rather it be on the big TV because
Hmm.
then we all see it.
Hmm.
But I think like pro tip for you and for anybody else, keep your kids off of YouTube and
Yeah,
YouTube Kids
yeah.
because like YouTube Kids is predatory, and there was almost legislation like, I think against like the way YouTube Kids was handled. I think at one point because it is so sketchy because like from like a legal perspective, like it is a lot of it is adults making videos and like essentially advertising to children
Yes.
in a lot of ways. And then so I don't like it because of that. I also don't as an example, like my niece has been watching YouTube probably since she was like 2 on and off.
Hmm.
And it has gotten increased more and more as she's gotten older. And then I think she's now on, I think with her parental supervision and like it's limited and locked to the only people that can see it are friends and family and stuff like that on Instagram, maybe TikTok. I don't know. But I think it's just Instagram. Um, but like my niece thinks she's an influencer at like 9 years old, essentially. And I remember distinctly going to their house when she was like, I don't know, 6 or something like that. And
Hmm.
she was like, her imaginary play with a friend was they ended the play with thanks for watching everybody, like and subscribe, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, no,
Yeah,
that is not, and it's no shade on my in-laws. Like, hey, everybody has to do what they got to do to get through the day.
absolutely.
That's fine. It's just my choice. Um, but I think I don't want that for Luna
Same.
personally,
And
But
I experienced something similar from my niece. You know,
yeah,
she's been on YouTube since she was younger, and now she's more into. Funny enough, she wants to do the content. That's interesting. Um,
but I mean, all kids nowadays want to. Like that's. I remember there being the survey a few years ago about for teens and like what they wanted to do when they graduated, and like there was an overwhelming majority that said that they wanted to be a content creator and a producer, and it's like, well, if everybody's creating content, like who's consuming the content at that point, right? Like,
yeah,
we need people doing other stuff, and I don't know. It's just I also don't want to sound like an old and be like, in my day we had real jobs because that's what we received too, right?
this
So
is true. This is true. But at the same time, that's a very valid thing because
yeah,
not everyone could create content. They can't, and
right,
I'm doing it with the podcast, but I'm doing it for fun. If I was doing it for like
right,
monetary gain, it's not something easy. It takes a lot of work and
yeah.
dedication. But there's some fruit
That
to
said, love every give this guy a sponsorship.
it. Hey, I did want to talk to you about something else, but I think if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to have you on. But one thing I learned about Chris is that he lives a sustainable life, and I would like to talk to you more about that.
Ooh, I don't know. Yeah, we can totally talk. I don't know how much I do, but yeah,
Well, you
that's
shared a little bit of what you do as far as like the toys that you have.
yeah.
So just share that part if you don't mind.
Yeah. So yeah, love every once again. Hello, sponsorship guy, this guy. Yeah, so we've strayed from that obviously as Luna's gotten older because plastic and noise and things, right? Like, but yeah, a lot of her early toys were from Love Every and other like really the Montessori method of play where it's like very much you know the toys are mostly wooden based and they're that way if you have to get rid of them you could technically like compost them or break them down and they're reusable. It's not plastic that's going to last for thousands of years. um but yeah, I mean that's like what we do with with a lot of her toys. The Montessori method also just lets her, we have a shelf out in the living room and we put all of her toys on it, and it's up, she can see all the toys, she can pick and choose what she wants to play with, not everything's in just like some giant toy bin.
We do something
And
similar.
so yeah, and like I think a lot of parents do it now too, like not even realizing they're doing it. But like Montessori is really like teaching through play as opposed to like teaching through like sit down lessons. And actually, that goes back a little bit to like the school topic is that Maddie, we were just having a conversation about this the other day of like, well, what kind of school do we want to send her to for like preschool essentially? Do we want like a standard, standard sit down and learn lesson type of school, or do we want her to learn through play? And we're probably leaning more towards like a Montessori school, assuming we can, one, get on the wait list and get in, and two, can afford it.
Oh
Um,
man, tell me about it.
but yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what we're able to do.
Yeah, we've been looking at a similar school for that very reason because I find that she catches on more when we do play. Like she has a play
Mhm.
kitchen with a tons of like we mentioned fruits and vegetables, tons of different fruits and vegetables, even like international ones. And we're
Nice.
teaching her those things. So when she sees them in real life, she knows exactly what they are. And
Mhm.
we'll play restaurant where we'll do like exchange of money. So she understands the concept of money to a degree,
Right.
This and it's fun because it I don't know. It's just it allows for one conversation. I don't know about you, but we've never done like the goo gaga baby talk with love, and I feel like that's
Not
one
really.
of the reasons why she speaks so clearly, to the point where people talk to her, they think she's like already three, and
Mhm.
so it's a lot that can be learned just by interacting with the children, and that's another reason why I don't like the tech too, is because I feel like it kind of takes away the human interaction, and then they're learning from these videos, and that's not always genuine. Um,
Yeah.
one thing that she because my in law started putting it on, she likes these children who are recorded by their parents and they do skits and like funny stuff. I don't know if Luna's ever seen anything like that.
No,
Uh,
she's definitely not seen any of that, but I
yes,
know what you're talking
this is
about.
one of the things that I don't like about like TV time if it's not educational, like Sesame Street or Mecha Builders, as I talked about. Like it just shows these kids being goofy and doing these skits, and she's not really learning anything from it because it's just a bunch of funny edits, sounds, and goofiness. That's not
Yeah.
genuine human interaction. Versus when she's playing with us, we're more like the other day they were playing Bunny. She has a toy bunny, and Joy was the bunny, and they just were like, "Yo, do you want to go for a walk, or you want to do this? You want to make lunch, dinner?" Then went on to imagination play, and I love it. Um, but it is very challenging when it comes to picking a school because you want to make sure that they do more of that instead of more of just the play and that's it. Because I've seen them where they just kind of keep them outside and they go on the slide for a couple hours and stuff like that. I don't really care for that.
Yeah. Yeah. That said, Luna will stay on a swing for like 2 hours if she could.
Oh, for sure. The playground is a dangerous thing. I drive past this front facing seat, man. I tell you, it's going to be the end of it.
Uh,
But when I'm
yeah.
driving past the playground, she's like, "Oh, I want to go on slide," and I'm like, "Oh, dang, dang, dang,
Yeah.
dang. We had a slide at home, baby."
Yeah.
It's funny. All right, Matt. Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking about, fatherhood with me and sharing your
Of
experience.
course.
This has been great, and I'm sure we can talk
Yeah.
about more. And I'd love to have you on further down the line once they've gotten older. We can talk about more things. But Chris has added to our docket my thoughts on the DCEU because, as you can see, I'm a DC fan. I like Marvel; they're okay, but DC is the bread and butter. But the one thing they cannot get right is live action films, and I don't know why.
What are you talking about? Black Adam was like cinematic pinnacle, the pinnacle of cinema.
I
And I'm being very
I
sarcastic.
know
I do
you
not
are because I
realize.
watched 10 minutes of Black Adam and I was like, I can't do it. I cut the movie off. I
Oh
didn't even
wow.
finish it.
Wow.
I had
Okay.
just finished Shazam like last week, and I was highly
The
disappointed.
first one?
No, the second one. I saw the first one. I like
Oh,
the first one. The second one I do not like. I do not like
okay.
it at all. Um, so that being said, I think James Gunn is a fresh breath of life into the DCU. However, I don't like the fact that we're like starting from scratch again. I would have preferred they kept the cast and characters they already had and just kind of made that writing work. But looking at it, I feel like too much damage was already done to the point where people just kind of just don't want to deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
But to remake Superman again, I don't know how I feel about that.
But it's a different story. I mean, I don't know the storylines as much as you, but I from what I've gathered, right, like it's a different storyline. So I think my assumption is that it is going to be much like Spider-Man's introduction into the MCU, where it's like
Okay.
we've seen with great power comes great responsibility, and we've seen him get bit by the spider. We've seen Uncle Ben die about a million times already. So we don't need to see all that, right? So like I don't think and this is my hope and maybe my assumption is that like I don't think we're gonna get Kal-El falls to Earth. We're not gonna get like the pod in the barn and like all of that kind of stuff. I think we're gonna meet Clark Kent and he's gonna be Superman already in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
The other thing too that's gonna be interesting, right, is that like we don't know what's happening with what state the DCEU is going to be in from a canon story perspective after the Flash, because like this Flash movie is going to be it's Flashpoint
Yeah.
essentially, right?
Yes.
And I am like I grin from ear to ear when I see Michael Keaton with that bat suit on again. Oh my god, that's amazing. Um, and like my question too is like, what are they going to do with Kara Zor-El after the Flash? Is she just not going to exist in the DCU again? Is she just like a one and done, or is she going to be shoulder to shoulder with Clark Kent in the new movies?
See, and I really don't know because with Flashpoint, you can do literally anything with this. Like, you can start
Yeah,
fresh and say that these people never existed, like Flash rewound time or something. You can do something, which is what I
yeah,
always loved about DC. It's kind of how they reboot their, stories all the time. Like some
sure.
kind of world changing event happens. And while I'm excited for that, I feel like they waited too long. Like, when did Batman versus Superman come out? 2000 what? 12? 2016, I think. I gotta look it up. But that's when they teased the Flash, right? And this is his first movie. Batman vs Superman
Mm,
came out 2016, and his first movie is coming out in 2023. And what you choose to do with the Flash is use him to reboot the crap you did. It makes no sense. It makes no sense, and it's confusing because Aquaman 2 comes out after the Flash.
yeah.
Like, but at the same time, Jason Momoa has been cast to play. Dang, what's his name? I can't think of his name right now. One of Superman.
Isn't he going to be Lobo?
There it is, Lobo. How? And he's Aquaman. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
I think it's because Lobo is going to be so CG that like he's going to be almost he'll have maybe some of Jason Momoa's face, but and voice, but like I don't think it's gonna be recognizably like Jason Momoa.
I'll be curious to see how that plays out. Now, I will say
Yeah,
this: the Blue Beetle movie looks pretty good.
yeah,
It looks pretty good.
yeah.
It,
Hey, Viva La Raza! Like, let's get those Chicanos like showing up properly on screen and not just like doing the stereotypical things.
And I'm loving that though. I'm loving the representation for it because Blue Beetle's a pretty badass character, honestly.
See, I don't know anything about the Beetle. Like, he's too deep into DC canon for like me to have really been exposed to him in the past.
Well, see, I guess you don't really keep up like the animation side of things, but
I don't.
that's where DC really shines though. Like their
Oh,
animated universe,
100%. I've watched some of them.
yeah,
Yeah, those are amazing.
they're really good, and that's where DC really shines. And for the longest time, I thought that's like the only way you could portray their character because maybe they're like too, I don't want to say out there because they're not out there, but I don't know, too grounded in a sense that you can't really portray them in live action. But then they made something fantastic like the Suicide Squad, which is directed by James Gunn. That's actually pretty good. It has fantastical creatures in it, but they're done well,
Mhm.
and it kind of feels
Yeah,
realistic in that universe. Um, but I don't know. But Blue Beetle was a main character in Young Justice. It's kind of like Teen Titans, but
yeah.
a different version. He was a main character in there, and for one full arc, he was like a central character. So he
Oh,
got a lot
nice.
of exposure over the past couple of years. So I would highly recommend that show. Or if you want to watch a movie with him, the Justice League versus Teen Titans, he's in that also. If
Okay.
you want to catch up on the character, but I think this movie is going to do very well because it looks really good, and they've done a lot of justice to the character
Yeah.
versus other properties they had. Like I don't know what they were doing with Ben Affleck's Batman, although he's my favorite Batman live action wise. I have no idea what they're doing with him because he looks awesome in the Flash movie, but he said he only had 5 minutes of screen time. So
But also, like, where did Martian Manhunter go?
and that was so random. Oh my goodness. Oh, I was so looking forward to the Justice League movie, and that was a disappointment. It wasn't until the Snyder cut I was like, okay, now this movie's good. And then towards the end, it was just like, here's Martian Manhunter, and then never again. And I like the guy that plays him because he's one of the
Yeah.
characters on Blacklist and the
Hmm.
FBI captain or whatever. And I love that dude. And I like Martian Manhunter. I think he's pretty cool. And again, I guess DC really just has no idea what to do with the characters. I keep telling them to hire me, but every time I tweet them, they don't answer me.
Yeah, and I think, and that was that. I think that's the thing too, is that like what I don't even remember what the name of that group was that was in Black Adam, but like they were really interesting, I think. Like uh and like Hawkman was awesome. One of the cooler portrayals I've seen of Hawkman.
Man,
Uh
I love Hawkman. I never watched the movie, but I watched the scenes, and I love Hawkman in
yeah,
general because I think he's cool.
yeah. And like I thought that that was like really interesting. I think the thing that, and this happens with all the superhero movies though, where it's like, well, where were you when like all of this shit was going down, right? Like, where was this group when Zod showed up, or when like all of, especially because Doctor Fate like can see the future and see all of that stuff, and he's like, he didn't see an entire city getting destroyed from like an alien invasion. Like, what? Where were you on that one, dude?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense for me. If they did more of what they did in like Batman versus Superman, where all these things were going on, but like Bruce Wayne was in the city or he saw it. Like if there was some connecting piece, like with the DC,
Yeah,
not DC, with the MCU, everything connected. And even
yeah,
though situations occurred like in individual movies and they didn't call for the Avengers, like it was still referenced. Like
right.
when Civil War came around, oh, we had just nerding out, but I don't care. When Civil War came around, they showed all the damage that they had done across all the movies. Like these are what the
Mhm.
Avengers have been up to. DC has had nothing like that. Only one movie has connected them, and that's BVS and Justice League. Everything else has just been
Mhm.
kind of like a side movie. I don't even think Aquaman tied into either one of those. I think it led up to it. I can't even remember.
Yeah.
But Aquaman wasn't terrible. The first,
Aquaman wasn't terrible. No, and I liked the dude that played Black Manta.
yes, more. He also played Morpheus in Matrix.
Yeah, he was great.
Terrible.
He's gonna be in, just reading about something that he's gonna be in sometime soon. I'm gonna have to look it up now because I remember being like pretty stoked on it.
But he's a good actor. He was also in Black Mirror season 4.
Yeah, yeah, he is going to be in. Uh, what's upcoming? He was interesting in Candyman. I liked him in Candyman too.
I didn't see
Um,
Candyman. Might just be my childhood making me too terrified to look at.
oh yeah, that's what it is. So there's a Marvel series coming out called Wonder Man, and he's going to be in that. I think he plays the main character. I don't know much about him, but I'm really interested in like good big talent showing up in the D or in the MCU. So
So now I'm going to ask you. You flipped it on me about the DCEU. How do you feel about the MCU? Because they're getting a lot of heat right now because their movies have
yeah,
not been good.
yeah, they're definitely floundering a little bit. And the thing is, like, I anticipated this a little bit, to be honest with you. Like, MCU was a phenomenon. It started with Iron Man as like a singular movie. They were to sprinkle in that little Easter egg because like it was funny, it was cute, like you know, and then the slow build up, the years long build up to Thanos. Like, of course, it's going to be a major event, and like, luckily they had the directors and writers that could stick the landing on those two stories.
Hmm.
Um, and like I knew there was going to be a lull right after that because like how do you do that? Like how do you immediately pivot back to telling smaller stories and not some massive baddie like showing up? Um, and going back for a second though, I in the third Spider-Man movie, I absolutely loved, even though I know that we've seen it already a million times, the way they introduced with great power comes great responsibility. Like during that scene, it was like almost something that brought a tear to my eye because like it was just so well done. I did not expect it whatsoever, and it's such a like emotional high in the movie. So super super great. Um,
I agree. I love No Way Home and how they did that.
Yeah. I think like they're definitely floundering a little bit. I think that they potentially could be getting a little bit of momentum back now that they've realized they're putting out too much content and they're going to focus on quality over quantity.
Hmm.
Um, I'm a little nervous about this whole situation with Kang. The actor, I'm spacing on his name right now, but I love
Jonathan
him as
Major.
an actor.
Jonathan.
Jonathan Majors. He is an amazing actor.
Yeah.
He like I like everybody else discovered him from
Lovecraft
the show
Country.
on HBO. Lovecraft Country was absolutely amazing. I'm a little nervous about this because I think it saddens me because one, if it's true, right? Like it saddens me because he had an amazing career ahead of him potentially.
Hmm.
Uh, and then it also just saddens me because I think like having to replace him. That being said, focusing back on the DCU again or the MCU, um, if they do decide to get rid of him, he's the one character I think that's easily replaceable and recastable
Is it
because
though?
he exists. Yeah, he's even, I think he even said it in Loki is that like he exists in different forms across different timelines. So like
Okay.
why can't you recast him essentially, right? Like
I don't know if it'll have the same impact though. Like performance.
I agree, you need someone that's going to be able to carry it and
Yeah.
have that gravitas. The rumor, like the one actor that I had seen, I had never heard of him, but the rumored actor that could potentially be replacing him apparently is like what Jonathan Majors was a few years ago. So I think that could potentially work. I don't know. I also haven't seen Quantumania. I mean, I'm a dad during the pandemic, so we haven't been to the movies since the pandemic. Mostly because like my nephew isn't fully vaccinated and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so we'll see. I'm excited about the DC or the MCU. I think that I think they can right the ship essentially. And honestly, like I just love seeing these stories. And I'm not such a fanboy that I'm like poo-pooing on the DCU because like again, competition breeds like improvement. So if the DCU starts doing a lot better, well then guess what? the MCU is going to have to start doing better, and they're going to have to start getting better. And what makes me optimistic about this too is that like we've seen Disney do this already with Star Wars, right? Star Wars was tanking upon its revival, right? Like we were all stoked on the Force Awakens, and then Ryan Johnson came in and we're like, "Ooh, what are you doing? Like this is a good story, but is it like the follow up to that movie? Like not sure about
At
that."
all.
And then the third one didn't really stick the
Oh,
landing. Interesting story bits, but like didn't stick the landing. And then here comes Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, and like
mm,
they start doing their thing,
oh,
and like and then you like the slow momentum has been climbing and climbing and climbing, right? And now it's basically like if you really think about it, at the top of the Star Wars pyramid, it's Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and Kathleen Ellison, or Kathleen
Kenny.
whatever Kennedy,
Mm.
because she has to be, right? Like she oversees that, but like I think she's also learned a little bit from the early mistakes that happened with the revival of Star Wars. So, and like Kevin Feige's no dummy. I think he's probably just as good or better than Kathleen Kennedy. We've seen that proven, I think. So I think that like it can happen. That being said, Kathleen Kennedy needs to get that Rogue Squadron movie going in some way, shape, or form, because it's like Star Wars and X-wings and
Yes.
basically
Yeah.
Top Gun. Like, come on, like that story writes itself for the most part. They
Isn't
need to
the
figure that out.
isn't the woman that directed Wonder Woman supposed to be the one directing that? Patty
No,
Jenkins?
no, that production has basically been squashed for a while now.
Oh, I don't know who's doing Rose Squadron now. I thought that was the one.
No one. It's like it's on ice for the moment.
Oh, well, that sucks. I liked
Yeah,
Patty Jenkins. She was, the first Wonder Woman was actually really good.
yeah, I thought it was
And
interesting.
that's the only film I know about her. But I agree with what you're saying about Star Wars. Star Wars is like up then down then back up.
Yeah,
Disney Plus, I think, is the silent killer of the MCU because they've been flooding Disney Plus with too much content, like Ms. Marvel, Moon Knight, all those other shows, and it's been too much. If they had just done like the Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, and then I guess Loki, maybe because it tied in.
they had to do Ms. Marvel though too.
Oh well, that's true. Because the next one, now that movie actually looks good. The Marvels looks good. I wasn't excited
I
about how I
like
thought it.
so the other thing too is like I love Ms. Marvel like as a character,
Mm-hmm.
because I started reading, and I love Miles Morales as well. Like probably my two favorite modern Marvel characters, because of the fact that like they give me the feeling of like Peter Parker Spider-Man from like when we were kids. Like you're young, you're learning, you're making mistakes, you're trying to balance too many things. And like I honestly in a lot of ways, like I would be it's very tough for me to say who I like more, Ms. Marvel or Miles Morales. Just
Interesting.
because like they're both such good, well written characters in the comics at least.
See, I don't know them from the
Um
comics. I only know them from the video
yeah.
games.
The other thing too, and this is like a little bit of a deep cut. So in the first Homecoming, in the first Spider-Man movie,
I think I know where you're going to go with
when
this.
when Peter goes into the parking garage and um, he webs up Childish Gambino
Mm-hmm.
essentially, and he mentions like, "Oh, hey, I got a nephew about your age," blah 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 blah. Like the character that he plays is Aaron Johnson. It's like I think it's like unofficially Aaron Johnson, but it's Aaron Johnson who is the Prowler,
Mm-hmm.
who is the uncle to Miles Morales. Which you okay? So that's right. You played this. You played Spider-Man Miles Morales, so like you know that story. But like that, like where's Miles? Like they've dropped him so many times. We have the multiverse now in the MCU, so like like give me Miles Morales, please,
I'm
someone.
pretty sure he's coming because they have done nothing but set up like the Young Avengers at this point. So
Oh yeah,
I'm pretty sure he'll be coming because Tom Holland, I think, he even said once he hits 30, he doesn't want to play Spider Man anymore. I
yeah.
mean, that's like right
So
around
I
the
mean that's
corner.
rapidly approaching.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I've heard that he gets like one more movie, which hopefully maybe is like a passing of the torch movie.
there you
What
go.
would be wild? What would be wild to me is that because like in uh, the new multiverse Spider-Man movie, the one that's coming out,
Hmm.
like I'm pretty sure there's a reference to the MCU, or maybe it's the other way. They mentioned the universe number of the animated one.
Hmm.
So like what would be awesome is that like what if they wrap up the multiverse story, the animated one, and he like comes into the MCU?
That would be
That would be
cool.
awesome.
That would be cool, but I still would have no idea who would play him in live action, though. That's the challenging
Yeah.
part.
I mean, like we didn't really know who Tom Holland was beforehand. Like
This is true.
I think I think that's the other thing that's hurt the MCU a little bit is that they're going for really big names most of the time,
Hmm.
and I think that they need to scale back on that.
Well, Miss Marvel's a good. I don't know that young lady.
That's one of the only recent examples,
Okay.
essentially, where like
That
they
worked
they
out.
cast an unknown. What's that?
That one worked out for me because I liked her casting.
Yeah.
Also, the casting for the girl that played in the Hawkeye series, Kate Bishop. She's pretty well
Oh,
known, but I didn't know her. I didn't know her.
yeah, she's pretty well known.
But I like her casting too. I actually really liked the Hawkeye series. I didn't like the way
Hawkeye was great.
I like the way it ended. I feel like that was a little underwhelming for me, but
Mm,
I feel like all the series kind of ended flat, except for Captain America. Well, Falcon and Winter Soldier, because I was like extremely hyped when he was in the Captain America suit.
of
I even
course.
got the figure back there because
Oh,
it looks
nice.
so
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, I think I agree. I think they are going for bigger names now, which is kind of a corny thing for me because I didn't really know Chris Evans. I don't think many people knew Chris Evans. I knew him from Fantastic Four. That was it. But
I knew him from Fantastic Four and Scott Pilgrim.
oh, I don't remember him in that. He was in that.
He was one of the evil X's.
Oh gosh, I gotta watch that. Oh
He was Lucas Lee. He was the movie star X.
wow, you got a better memory than me. I only watched that movie one
Yeah.
time. Oh wow, I did not know
No,
he.
I watch that. I watch it like every few years, and we're probably gonna watch it again because the animated series got
I
announced a
was about to
couple
say,
weeks
yeah, they're gonna
ago.
do one for what is it, Netflix, right?
Yeah, but in like they're bringing the original cast back.
Yeah, which is cool. Which I love when
Yeah,
shows do that. When you reboot it and you bring back the original cast, I think that's dope.
I think it's because Edgar Wright. I'm pretty sure Edgar Wright is attached in some way. I don't think if Edgar was attached, they would come back.
Oh, didn't know that either. Wow, that's the Ant Man
Yeah.
writer and director.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm a fan of his work.
Well,
Ant Man movies.
sort of director,
Oh,
because
right.
he didn't finish that movie out.
That's true. That's true. He was going to. Then they got the what Peyton Reed dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Peyton Reed's done well with the series so
he
far.
has.
I
Quantumania,
think, yeah,
Quantumania. You haven't seen it yet, but it's actually
no,
not that.
yeah.
It's not that bad like people make it out to be.
Yeah, of course not. It's just people overreact because yeah.
The only thing I can say about that movie and Thor: Love and Thunder is the production part of it is what hurt them the most because they were both filming during the pandemic, and but you can kind of tell though it's a lot of close up shots on a CG background versus the previous Marvel movies where I feel like they had like wider shots,
No,
more
okay.
open areas. Not even for like the big films, like even Captain America had like actual on site locations. These are all just green screen movies, and it just looks
Yeah.
terrible. So
If you want to talk about that, Love and Thunder is probably my biggest disappointment from most recent Marvel stuff.
I agree. I was really looking forward to like a Guardians of the Galaxy slash Thor movie, and when they showed that they were in it, I thought that's what we were going to get, and then I just
Yeah.
that. No.
Well, it's funny though, right? When Thor, I think it was at the end of when Thor leaves with the Guardians at the end of Infinity War or Endgame, he jokes and he calls them as Guardians of the Galaxy. There's actually a comic series called the Asgardians of the
Oh, is
Galaxy,
there really?
where it's a similar thing. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Um,
See, I would have liked.
but to me, Thor was the bigger disappointment, though not necessarily just because of the graphics, though the graphics were rough. Um, a lot of it came down to like um, how they treated Jane Foster's Thor. She has one of the most beautiful story arcs in the comic, like the Marvel comic series, and they like barely touched it. Barely touched it. I'll give them credit that they at least were fairly comic accurate with her costume,
Mm-hmm.
but uh, but like her story ends like basically like there's a character, this like all powerful character. His family was murdered by the gods, as guardians, and he is like so all powerful. And this isn't even Gore. This is like someone else.
Hmm.
Um, he's like so unstoppable. He's destroying like different planets, different gods, this, that, and the other thing. And Jane ends up like sacrificing herself, but also learns that you learn so much about Mjolnir in that storyline too. That like it's not just the heart of a dying star. It was like way more sentient, and like she like there's like a total like a ton of storyline, but like she has like the way she ends up ending that storyline was just absolutely beautiful. Um, and like and I know that there was only one movie, but like I think she could have gotten multiple movies,
Mm-hmm.
especially as you see her, if you had we had seen her battle cancer more through the movies, because like it was really, they could have left the whole cancer thing out for the most part in that movie, and like it would have been fine, I think. Like they could have written a slightly different movie.
I thought that
But
was
yeah,
key for
like the
that
way that,
character, though.
what's
I
that?
thought the cancer story was key to that character's like creation.
It is, but like the way they handled it in that movie, like I don't know if, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
like
understand what you're saying because in the movie it was like, oh yeah, but now she has cancer, and then that was kind of it, though.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because like that's the thing is like in the comics, like they really drive it home that like it always happens that like she's always getting chemo, and then she has to transform into Thor, and so that cancels out the chemo,
Hmm.
and so she just slowly dies, and like she's like withered towards the end of her life.
Oh wow.
Um and like barely holding on, and like, and so yeah, it's just the way they did it was fine, but I don't know. I also think that like James Gunn and Taika Waititi, like they have such strong style
Hmm.
for their films that I think their films lose their luster over time, because you're like, "Oh, we've already seen this humor. Like we've already seen like this kind of thing before." I think the thing that James Gunn has going against him though is that he always has to work with like the same people.
Yeah, I've noticed
Like
that.
Michael Rooker's always going to be it. Sean Gunn is always going to be in it. Now his wife is probably going to be in every movie or everything that he does. Like he always has to work with the same people, and I understand his reasoning. Like, oh, I don't want to work with shitty people, but at the same time, like find some new people too.
Sometimes that kind of works with it though, because there's
It
another
does.
director, Tim Burton. He always worked with Johnny Depp, and a lot of their movies
Yeah,
together are classics.
yeah. And I mean, and he always works with Helena Bonham Carter too. Um, but like, I don't know. It, I don't know. It's also a personal preference thing, right? Like I'd like to see what people can do with different people.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Different chemistry, different interactions. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that.
So
I can see that. Well, it seems like we've been disappointed in both the MCU and the DCEU fronts.
yeah,
So
but I think they're both on their rise. So
I
I'm stoked on the Flash. I want to be clear. I am very interested on the Flash, despite all of the Ezra Miller stuff. Like
the trailers look
I am.
fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited for it, and it's not just because of the Michael Keaton stuff. I like the Flash character that Ezra Miller portrays.
Yeah, I agree. I like the character. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with it. And it's funny with everything he has going on. I'm curious to see if they end up keeping him.
They,
Yeah,
they,
they. I apologize. That's correct. That is
yeah.
correct. No,
Ezra Miller, don't come after him.
no, please not. Please, I got to lock my windows now.
Ooh, that actually may be too true. You
I got to
never
lock my
know.
windows now. Oh gosh. Uh, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that. What's it coming out? June 6th. This is right around the corner.
Something like that.
I'm excited because my
Yeah,
boy Ben Affleck's in it, and that's my favorite Batman.
yeah.
So I get to see him for.
And you know the other thing too, like maybe the Flash is going to be the turnaround point. Guardians 3 just released, and apparently that's really good.
I've heard
So
nothing but good things about that. That's good. I didn't like really care for the second one, but I mean
no,
it's okay. But The third one I heard is pretty good, and I like Rocket, and I heard he's like one of the main focus. So I'm excited about that.
I have heard that if you are if you're sensitive to like animals, animal cruelty or something like that, that it may be a triggering movie for you. But I've heard it's really good otherwise.
I think we are going to go check that out. So you just took, I'm not going to bring my daughter to see this because I don't think it'd be kid
Yeah,
friendly. She loves animals,
probably
and I don't want to see her see a raccoon get tortured or anything.
not. Yeah.
So to wrap this up, I'm curious. We talked about movies that could be better. What's a movie that you've seen recently that you think is fantastic that you would recommend?
Man. Okay. The very first thing that comes to mind is Top Gun Maverick. That movie is like insane in every way, shape, or form. And like it was so much so that I was like, I'm buying. It's there unless it's an MCU movie. Like I'm rarely like I'm buying this movie immediately. And I that Top Gun Maverick was it. I think it's so well written, so well acted. The sound design especially. There's a video about how they made the sound to like that like fighter jet thing that Tom Cruise flies in the very beginning of the movie.
Mm.
Like that plane doesn't actually exist. Everything else in the movie does. But so they had to like, what did a plane like this sound like? And like there was a whole like 10-minute video about like how this they created the sound for that movie. And also they said in that interview that when Tom Cruise takes off from the tarmac that first time and he flies over Ed Harris and like the roof lifts off the security post that
Mm.
Ed Harris is standing next to, they flew an actual ship or like an actual plane over Ed Harris. It just wasn't that plane.
Wow.
Ed Harris took that wave of air, like the gust of air, took that and like still stood. But the roof lifting off was unintended, but they like left it in the movie because it was awesome. Like, of course, it was awesome to see something like that. So,
That's
yeah.
dope. I did hear that they use a lot of like actual playing scenes and stuff like that, like real
Oh
equipment for
yeah.
that. That's really interesting. And it's funny, fun fact. I don't know if you were working for our previous employer at the time, but I do when I did the onboarding, I would ask people what they were streaming, and people would say they Top Gun. And I found out in that session that that was not a original movie. I did not know that that was a sequel until I had that meeting.
Yeah.
And they were like, "You should go back and watch the first one." I went back to go find the first one, 1985 or 86 or something,
Hmm.
before I was even born. I did not watch the movie. I don't go back in time and watch movies like that. I think I'll stick with
Yeah.
Top Gun Maverick. It filled me in enough to know that this dude used to fly. He's a good pilot, so I was okay with that. But I
Yeah.
didn't know it was a sequel, and I felt I had egg on my face in that moment.
It's fine. I mean, it's gonna happen, right? But yeah, like Tom Cruise wanted basically mandated that all of the actors, the actresses that were gonna be in the plane scenes, he made them all basically do like a crash course flight school. So they all had to like all of those scenes where they're in the cockpit, like they're actually in the cockpit.
Mm.
They may not actually be flying it, but like they're taking those G's
I like the
that are being,
authenticity though. That's
yeah,
fantastic because I mean
so good.
it's much better than standing in front of a green screen. You know,
Oh
I
yeah.
like when movies use physical, like actual props. Shout out to Star Wars
Mhm.
because now they started doing that more, and I love that.
Oh yeah.
Because back in the day, it was more realistic. Because you know, the older movies they didn't have CG like that.
Yeah, that was the one thing, and that's what the one thing that Force Awakens did really right is that like that scene at the end where Rey and Finn are fighting, in like they're fighting
Kylo
uh
Ren.
Kylo Ren, and they all have the lightsabers, and you can see the actual color of the lightsaber on their face, like it's because they actually are holding like a lightsaber with the actual color, and like
Hmm.
it just looked so good. It looked so good in that like dark and snowy environment.
And I love the fact. Oh, all right, I'm just gonna keep nerding out about these movies, but I love the fact that the snow hitting the lightsaber was turning into steam during that, showing how
Mm,
hot it was.
yeah.
Oh man, first of all, Kylo Ren is my favorite Star Wars character now. Previously, it was
Oh.
yeah. I hate that he died in Episode 9. but I felt like he had like real potential, and I also like his
Mhm.
lightsaber with the what's it called, hilt. I thought that was
Mhm.
unique, and the fact that it was like buggy, kind of like spritzing on and off a lot. I thought that was cool, and it just
It's because he made it himself and he wasn't trained to make it.
exactly he built it, but it's cool though because that's like what you're taught in the Star Wars lore. It's like if you don't
Hmm.
build it correctly, like it's not going to function properly. And I love that. It was wonderful. I got a Kylo Ren figure right over there. My whole top shelf right there
Nice.
is all Star Wars. I'm actually
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that like I heard that that's part of the reason that he has the two exhaust ports on the side. Oh, nice. There you go.
mhm.
Is that because he didn't make it correct. He had to like vent. He had to like make that vent because he like didn't make it correctly or
But
something.
then
I don't know if that's true.
I think I also read that in one of the lore books. But it's also cool because still used it as a weapon. He burned Finn when he got
Oh yeah.
close. When he got close to him, and Finn was still guarding, he went like that. Also, here's another thing I don't like about the new generation of Star Wars. The only reason I was really hype about the Force Awakens because I thought John Boyega was going to be a Jedi. So
Yes.
I was like, oh, there's going to be another Black Jedi. Let's go. I was so excited
Yeah.
for that. And they completely let me down with that. Because how do you hint that
Oh
he's
yeah.
strong with the Force? He wields a lightsaber in the first movie, but yet he does not become a Jedi. Ugh, terrible.
And I mean, like, even making like I'm fine with him being even just force sensitive, but like make him like use the force in a different way, right? Like use the force in like maybe the way a gunslinger would use the force or something like
There you
that,
go.
right?
That I love.
Um, and like, but do and like not everybody has to be like a super formally trained Jedi, and maybe that's also part of what's interesting about the Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor games that are out
Mm-hmm.
by
The second one,
Respawn, because like what's that?
I haven't played the second one yet.
I just started it, and of course it's dad. I'm in dad time, so like I've gotten maybe 4 hours, 5 hours total
I
into
know
it.
how it
Not very
goes.
far. But yeah. So we won't even touch on video games because we'll be here for like another hour, 45 minutes to an hour.
Absolutely.
But
Plus, I don't want no spoilers because it's sitting in my game queue, and I'm just waiting for the Zelda to drop first, and then I'm gonna play that.
yeah, no. If we were going to start talking games, I would have started talking about God of
Oh,
War,
I know,
but
I know.
I won't do that
Which I
to you.
still haven't played. I have it on my PlayStation. I still haven't played it.
Which one? The original or
The,
like the 2018
the
or
original. The
Ragnarok?
original.
Okay.
Ragnarok. I also have. I game share with a friend, so whatever he buys, like, I get to play. So technically, I have
Nice.
access to it, but I didn't beat the first one, so I didn't jump into it yet.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
yeah, all right. I might have to wrap this up. This is great though.
Yeah.
Clearly, I need to have you on so we can talk more nerd stuff and video games and tech because my man Chris has insight on all of it, and I love it. But
I try.
it's been a pleasure having you on here. Thank you so much. Um, until next time, look, thank you for hanging with me. I got Chris kicking it with me, and hopefully I have him back so we can talk some more. But for now, peace.
Thanks.